The Centauri trading hub hung like a crystalline spider web against the backdrop of swirling nebula clouds, its transparent tunnels connecting massive habitat spheres where hundreds of species conducted the business of galactic commerce. In the central command sphere, First Speaker Varix of the Galactic Commerce Alliance stood motionless, all 6 of her sensor stalks focused on the holographic display before her. "Impossible," she whispered, her voice carrying the harmonics of deep concern that made her junior analyst's protective scales bristle. "Run the analysis again." Chief Analyst Kex manipulated the controls with his primary appendages, his secondary ones twitching nervously. "First Speaker, we've run it 12 times. The readings are consistent. The vessel appeared at the edge of our detection grid 17 minutes ago, but it's using a form of propulsion we've never encountered. It's not leaving any quantum wake signature." The vessel in question appeared as a sleek, dark shape in the hologram, moving with deliberate purpose toward the hub. Its design defied the common architectural principles used by every known spacefaring race. Where most ships displayed their power through size or obvious weapon systems, this craft seemed designed to minimize its presence. Yet something about its understated profile made Varix's defensive instincts flare. "What do we know about its origin point?" she asked, trying to maintain the calm demeanor expected of her position. "That's the other anomaly," Kex replied, bringing up a stellar map. "It emerged from the Perseus Arm, specifically from a region we designated as developmentally primitive. The only notable civilization in that sector was pre-FTL last time we surveyed it. They called themselves." He checked his data. "Humans." The word sent a ripple of unease through the command center. Pre-FTL to unknown advanced propulsion in less than a century. It violated everything they understood about technological development. "First Speaker," a new voice cut in. Security Director Maz approached, his massive frame making the deck plates vibrate slightly. "Our deep scan arrays are having trouble penetrating their hull. The material composition doesn't match anything in our database, but we are detecting energy readings that suggest extremely sophisticated containment fields." Varix felt her grip on calm protocol slipping. A completely unknown ship with unknown capabilities was approaching the hub's defensive perimeter. The last time something similar happened, the swarm had nearly destroyed 3 sectors before being contained. "Open a communication channel," she ordered. "All frequencies, full spectrum." The response came almost instantly, faster than any normal translation matrix should have been able to process. A figure appeared in the holographic display. Bipedal, with only 2 arms and apparently no natural defenses. Its skin looked soft and vulnerable, yet its bearing suggested complete confidence. "Greetings, Centauri Hub Control. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Hyperion. We apologize for our unannounced arrival, but we're tracking a critical security threat that our sensors indicate passed through this sector." The human's voice carried no harmonic overtones, no subsonic emotional indicators that Varix could read. Yet something in those dark eyes made her sensor stalks quiver. "Captain Chen," Varix responded, using her most diplomatic frequency. "Your arrival is unexpected. Our records indicate your species had not yet achieved faster-than-light travel. Perhaps you could explain how you came to be here." A slight smile crossed the human's face. "Your records are outdated, First Speaker. Humanity has made some significant advances in the past few decades. We'd be happy to discuss cultural exchange later, but right now we're dealing with an urgent situation. Someone has stolen extremely dangerous technology from one of our research facilities. If it's activated improperly, it could destabilize space-time throughout this entire sector." Director Maz stepped forward, his combat sensors fully extended. "You expect us to believe that a previously unknown species just happened to develop technology beyond our understanding, and now comes to us with warnings of some mysterious threat." "Not mysterious at all," Chen replied, her smile fading. "The thief is using our own stealth systems, which is why your standard security protocols haven't detected them. In fact," she glanced at something off-screen, Our sensors indicate they passed through your customs checkpoint approximately 36 hours ago, possibly disguised as a Regellian merchant. Verix felt her blood run cold. 36 hours ago, the hub had experienced a series of small power fluctuations that their engineers still couldn't explain. She had dismissed it as normal equipment degradation. But now, assuming we believe you, Verix said carefully, what exactly are you proposing? We need to work together, Chen answered. Your hub's security systems are sophisticated, but they're not designed to detect our technology. And while we can track the energy signature of the stolen device, we don't know your station's layout or protocols. The thief is still here somewhere, and time is running out. Before Verix could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. Kex's appendages flew over his controls. First speaker, we're detecting massive energy spikes in the commercial sector. Some kind of field is forming, but our instruments can't classify it. The human captain's expression turned grave. That's what we were afraid of. They're trying to activate the device. First speaker, you need to evacuate that entire section immediately. What they stole isn't just technology. It's a prototype for manipulating the fundamental forces of reality itself. Verix looked at the readings spreading across her displays, at the strange human ship hanging just outside their perimeter, and at the growing chaos in her command center. In all her cycles of service, she had never faced a situation like this. The protocols were clear about unknown vessels and unverified threats, but something in her gut told her this human captain was telling the truth. Director Maz, she said finally, begin emergency evacuation procedures for the commercial sector. Captain Chen, I'm granting your ship emergency clearance to dock. But understand that if this is some kind of deception. With respect, first speaker, Chen interrupted, we're about to have bigger problems than trust issues. She gestured to her crew off-screen. We're detecting quantum field fluctuations, whatever the thief is planning. They're starting it now. Permission to transport directly to your command center. It'll be faster than docking. Transport. Verix started to ask, but before she could finish, a column of blue light appeared in the center of the room. When it faded, Captain Chen and two other humans stood there, wearing sleek uniforms and carrying strange devices that made Verix's sensor stalks ache just to look at them. I suggest we continue this discussion while moving, Chen said calmly, holding up a device that showed complex energy patterns spreading through the hub structure. Because in about 10 minutes, this entire station is going to experience a localized breakdown of conventional physics unless we stop it. And as if to emphasize her point, gravity in the command center flickered, sending loose objects floating gently toward the ceiling. The game of trust had just become a race against time. The emergency council chamber of Centauri Hub buzzed with tense energy as representatives from 12 different species argued over the unprecedented situation. Captain Chen stood at the center of the chamber, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos around her. The stolen quantum manipulator's energy signature pulsed on her handheld scanner, growing stronger by the minute. You expect us to believe. Trade Minister Xalax's translator squealed, his gelatinous form rippling with skepticism, that your species went from primitive chemical rockets to quantum manipulation in less than a century, without any outside help. Necessity breeds innovation, Minister, Chen replied, her dark eyes scanning the room. When you're alone in a hostile universe, you learn to think creatively. She gestured to the scanner. But right now, we have more pressing concerns than human technological development. First speaker Verix raised her sensor stalks for attention, silencing the chamber. Captain Chen's credentials check out, at least as far as we can verify them. The energy readings from the commercial sector are real, and they're growing exponentially. Security Director Maz stomped forward, his heavy frame making the floor vibrate. Then let my teams handle it. We don't need outside help to secure our own station. Lieutenant Rivera, one of Chen's crew members, spoke up from where he was analyzing the station's security feeds. With respect, Director, your teams aren't equipped to handle quantum field manipulation. The thief is using technology that can literally rewrite local physics. Traditional security measures won't work. As if to emphasize his point, a ripple of distortion passed through the chamber. For a brief moment, everyone experienced time slightly differently. Some feeling seconds stretch into minutes, others seeing moments compress into blur. Several council members clutched their heads, disoriented. That, Chen said grimly, was just a minor fluctuation. If the device fully activates, it could create a cascade of reality distortions that would tear this station apart. She turned to her other crew member, Dr. Zhang, who was setting up what looked like a portable quantum field generator. How long? The containment field is degrading faster than we projected, Zhang reported, her fingers dancing over holographic controls. Maybe 20 minutes before critical threshold. And the thief knows we're here. They're accelerating their timeline. Verix felt her scales ripple with anxiety. In all her years of diplomatic service, she'd never faced a crisis quite like this. The humans' technology violated everything they thought they knew about scientific progression. Yet here they were, seemingly their only hope of preventing catastrophe. "What exactly do you need from us?" she asked Chen. "Access to your security systems and station schematics," Chen replied immediately. "The thief is using our stealth tech, but they still need to move physically through your station. If we can overlay our quantum tracking with your conventional security." "Absolutely not," Maz interrupted. "Our security protocols are classified. For all we know, this entire crisis is a ruse to infiltrate our systems." Chen's expression hardened slightly. "Director, in about 19 minutes, your security protocols won't matter because this entire sector of space will be experiencing random temporal fluctuations. Is your pride worth that risk?" Another distortion wave hit, stronger this time. In one corner of the chamber, a potted plant aged 50 years in seconds, withered and died. In another, a cup of water froze, melted and evaporated almost simultaneously. First speaker, Lieutenant Rivera called out, his voice urgent. "We're detecting movement in the maintenance tunnels of Section 7. The quantum signature matches what we're tracking. Those tunnels lead directly to the station's main power core." Verix realized, her sensor stalks going rigid with alarm. "If they tap into your power grid, they could amplify the device's effects across the entire station." Zhang added, looking up from her equipment. "We need to move now." Verix looked around the chamber, seeing fear and uncertainty in every face. The humans' warnings seemed outlandish, impossible, yet the evidence was literally warping reality around them. She made her decision. "Director Maz, grant them full access. Captain Chen, what's your plan?" Chen nodded to Rivera, who immediately began interfacing with the station's security systems. "We split up. My team can track the quantum signatures, but we need your people's knowledge of the station's layout. Mixed teams, full communication sharing." She smiled slightly. "Time for humans and the Alliance to learn how to work together." "And if we catch up to this thief?" Maz demanded. "What then?" "That's why I'm here," Chen replied, activating something on her uniform that made the air around her shimmer slightly. "Our stealth tech versus theirs. While you're all keeping them contained, I'll handle the direct confrontation." Verix noticed something interesting. The human captain had said, "When we catch up, not if." That quiet confidence, despite everything they were facing, was oddly reassuring. "There's something you're not telling us," Verix said quietly as the others began organizing into teams. Chen's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. "There always is first speaker, but right now you'll have to trust that what we're sharing is what you need to know to survive this crisis." Another temporal distortion rippled through the chamber, this one strong enough to make the structural integrity alarms activate. In the distance, they could hear the sounds of panic as the station's civilian population began to notice that something was very wrong with their reality. "Teams of 3, Chen announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. Each human paired with a security officer and a station engineer. Dr. Zhang will coordinate from here, trying to set up a containment field. We need to find this thief before they reach the power core, or before they lose control of the device, whichever comes first. As the teams rushed to their assignments, Varix watched Chen check her weapons, devices that seemed to manipulate gravitational fields rather than firing conventional projectiles or energy beams. The human captain caught her looking, wondering why we developed such unusual technology. Chen asked. Among other things, Varix admitted. When you're a young species discovering you're not alone in the universe, Chen replied. Heading for the door, you learn to think outside conventional boundaries. Sometimes that leads to breakthroughs nobody else considered. She paused. And sometimes it leads to things that nobody should have discovered at all. The implications of that statement hung in the air as they moved out into the increasingly chaotic station, racing against time and physics itself. The maintenance tunnels of Centauri Hub twisted through the station's superstructure like metallic arteries, their surfaces reflecting the increasingly frequent waves of quantum distortion. Captain Chen moved silently alongside Security Director Maz and First Speaker Varix, her quantum scanner painting ethereal patterns in the air before them. The signature's getting stronger, Chen whispered, studying the complex readings. They're definitely heading for the power core, but something's off about their movement pattern. Maz's heavy frame barely fit in the confined space, his armor scraping against the walls. What do you mean, off? They're taking an indirect route, Chen replied, gesturing at a holographic map Rivera had compiled by combining station schematics with their quantum tracking data. Almost like they're setting up something along the way. Varix finished, her sensor stalks twitching with sudden understanding. They're not just trying to reach the power core. Chen's expression darkened. They're placing quantum resonance points throughout the station's infrastructure. If they activate the device near the power core, the entire station becomes part of the quantum field, came Dr. Zhang's voice through their communicators. Captain, these readings suggest they're creating a massive quantum amplification network. The effects wouldn't be limited to the station. They could spread throughout this entire sector of space. A distant explosion rocked the tunnel, followed by the sound of emergency sirens. Rivera's voice crackled through their comms. Multiple quantum fluctuations in the civilian sectors. We've got temporal storms forming. Medical teams are reporting cases of localized time dilation. Some people are experiencing hours and minutes, others are barely moving at all. Chen pressed her hand against the tunnel wall, feeling the subtle vibrations of chaos spreading through the station. This isn't just theft or sabotage, she said quietly. They're using the station itself as part of their plan. But why here? Why this specific location? Varix's sensor stalks suddenly went rigid. The hub, it's not just a trading station. Its position at this particular intersection of space lanes wasn't chosen randomly. Maz turned to her, his combat sensors fully extended. First Speaker, that information is classified at the highest levels. And that classification may get everyone on this station killed. Varix snapped back. She turned to Chen. The hub was built here because this region of space has unique properties. The intersection of several natural quantum filaments makes it ideal for long-range communication and transportation. Understanding dawned in Chen's eyes. They're not trying to destroy the station. They're trying to use its position to amplify the device's effects across the entire communication network. Every quantum filament becomes a conduit. Another explosion shook the tunnel, closer this time. Zhang's voice came through filled with static. Captain, the quantum field is becoming unstable. I'm detecting coherent patterns in the chaos. Someone's trying to actively shape the distortions. That's impossible, Rivera cut in. Even our most advanced quantum manipulation tech can't control chaos theory at that scale. Unless, Chen said grimly, they're not trying to control it. They're trying to ride it. She looked at Varix. Your quantum filament network, it connects to every major civilization in this sector of space, doesn't it? Varix's scales paled. Every government hub, Every major military installation, every significant population center. The network is the backbone of galactic civilization in this region. And if someone could send a quantum signal through that network, Chen continued, one that could rewrite the basic laws of physics wherever it spreads, they could hold an entire sector of space hostage. Maz finished, his earlier skepticism replaced by growing horror. Chen's quantum scanner suddenly blazed with activity. "They're close," she whispered, and they'd stopped moving. She studied the readings, her face illuminated by the holographic display. "They're in some kind of junction chamber ahead. The primary network hub," Varric said, "where all the quantum filaments converge before connecting to the power core. It's the perfect position to." She never finished the sentence. A wave of distorted space-time rolled through the tunnel like a tsunami. Chen's quantum field generator barely managed to protect them, but the walls around them aged centuries in seconds, rust spreading like wildfire before reversing to pristine condition, then crystallizing into something that didn't obey normal physics. "Zhang," Chen called into her comm. "We need that containment field now." "Working on it," came the strained reply. "But Captain, these readings don't make sense. The quantum signature we're tracking, it's not exactly the same as what was stolen from our facility. It's like someone modified the technology, combined it with something else." Chen's eyes widened. "Or with someone else's quantum manipulation research." She turned to Varric. "Your civilization's been studying these quantum filaments for centuries, haven't you? Learning how they work, trying to understand their properties." "Of course," Varric replied. "But we never managed to actively manipulate them. The physics involved were too complex, too chaotic too." "But you built up a theoretical framework," Chen pressed. "Developed models, gathered data, came up with hypotheses about how they might be controlled." Maz's combat sensors suddenly focused on a specific point in the tunnel ahead. "Movement detected. Quantum distortion levels are off the scale." Chen readied her gravitational pulse weapon, its field generator humming to life. "This was never about stealing our technology," she said quietly. "They needed it to complete their own research. Human quantum manipulation tech combined with Alliance theoretical frameworks. A partnership," Varric whispered. "But who?" The tunnel ahead of them suddenly warped, space folding in on itself to reveal a figure standing at the junction entrance. They wore what looked like a combination of human stealth technology and Alliance quantum research equipment, their form shifting and blurring, as if they existed in multiple realities simultaneously. "Fascinating deduction, Captain," the figure said, their voice distorted by quantum fluctuations. "I wondered how long it would take you to piece it together. Humanity's practical innovation combined with the Alliance's theoretical understanding. The perfect synthesis. And now, thanks to this station's unique properties, I can demonstrate the true potential of this combination to everyone in this sector simultaneously." Chen raised her weapon. But the figure just laughed, a sound that seemed to echo through multiple timelines at once. "You still don't understand, do you?" They said. "This was never about theft or terrorism. This is about evolution, the next step in both our species' development. And you're just in time to witness it." They raised their hands, quantum energy crackling between their fingers like lightning, and the very fabric of reality around them began to tear apart. Reality fractured around them like shattered glass, each shard reflecting a different possibility of space-time. Captain Chen's quantum field generator strained to maintain a bubble of stable space around their small group as the mysterious figure's power continued to grow. "You don't understand what you're doing," Chen called out, her gravitational pulse weapon tracking the shifting form before them. "The quantum cascade effect isn't controllable at this scale. He'll tear apart the fabric of space-time itself." The figure laughed again, their form flickering between multiple states of existence. "Control is an illusion, Captain. The Alliance spent centuries trying to control these quantum filaments, to bend them to their will. Humanity tried to contain quantum manipulation within safe parameters. Both approaches failed because they were too limited, too afraid to embrace chaos itself. Director Maz's combat sensors were going haywire, unable to get a stable lock on their opponent. The station's structural integrity is failing. We're detecting quantum fractures spreading throughout all sectors. Through their comms, they could hear the panic spreading. Rivera's voice cut through the static. Multiple breaches in the civilian sectors. Emergency force fields are failing faster than we can redirect power. We've got people being exposed to raw quantum fluctuations. Zhang. Chen barked into her comm. Status on that containment field. I've never seen equations like this. Zhang's voice crackled back. They're not just combining our technologies. They're creating entirely new physics. The quantum resonance points they planted throughout the station are forming some kind of metacircuit. The figure raised their hands, and streams of quantum energy began flowing through the junction chamber, connecting to invisible points throughout the station. Your containment technologies can't stop this, Captain. The metacircuit is designed to tap into the quantum filaments themselves. Every attempt to contain it just adds more energy to the system. First Speaker Verix's sensor stalks quivered as she processed the readings from her own instruments. The quantum filament network, it's becoming active. The energy patterns are spreading beyond the station. Of course they are, the figure replied, their voice echoing across multiple frequencies. The network connects every major civilization in this sector. When the quantum cascade reaches critical mass, it will transform everything it touches. No more artificial boundaries between species, no more limiting ourselves to conventional physics. Chen's eyes narrowed as she studied the quantum energy flows. Something about the pattern. Zhang, she called into her comm. The resonance points. Are they forming a symmetric pattern? Yes, it's like. Wait. Zhang's voice suddenly became excited. Captain, the metacircuit isn't just channeling energy into the filaments. It's creating a quantum feedback loop. Which means? Maz demanded. Which means, Chen said quietly, they've made a critical mistake. Rivera, are you seeing this? Already on it, Captain, Rivera replied. Rerouting emergency power to the starboard stabilizers. If we can create a counter-resonance. The figure seemed to notice something was wrong. The quantum energy flows began to fluctuate erratically. What are you doing? Something you forgot to consider, Chen replied, slowly lowering her weapon. Humanity didn't develop quantum manipulation technology because we wanted to control it. We developed it because we needed to understand it. She nodded to Verix, who suddenly understood. The Alliance's theoretical models, they weren't just about controlling the filaments. They were about understanding their natural harmonics. Exactly, Chen said. Zhang, Rivera, do it now. Throughout the station, emergency systems suddenly activated in a precisely calculated sequence. The quantum resonance points that had been planted throughout the structure began to vibrate at specific frequencies, creating waves of interference that collided with the figure's metacircuit. No, they screamed, their form becoming increasingly unstable. You can't stop evolution. We're not stopping it, Chen replied calmly. We're directing it. Right back at you. The quantum energy streams began to curve inward, drawn by the counter-resonance being generated by the station's systems. The figure tried to maintain control, but the feedback loop was growing stronger, more focused. Rivera, Chen called out, status on the civilian sectors. Emergency containment holding in most areas. Medical teams are responding to temporal exposure cases, but the quantum fractures are beginning to stabilize. The figure's form was now a maelstrom of quantum energy, their carefully planned network of power turning back upon itself. You don't understand, they gasped, their voice distorting further. I was trying to free us all from the constraints of linear existence. Maybe, Chen replied. But you forgot the most important lesson humanity learned on our way to the stars. She stepped forward, the quantum field generator on her suit pulsing in harmony with the station's counter-resonance. Sometimes the only way to solve a problem is to work within the system's natural laws, not try to break them entirely. The junction chamber had become a nexus of competing quantum forces, reality itself twisting and warping as the figure's metacircuit collapsed in upon itself. Varix's sensor stalks detected a building wave of quantum energy unlike anything in Alliance records. "Everyone out," Chen ordered. "Zhang, prepare for emergency containment. Rivera, seal off this entire section." As they retreated from the chamber, the figure made one last attempt to regain control, reaching out with tendrils of pure quantum energy. But it was too late. The feedback loop had reached critical mass, and the varied forces they had tried to harness turned inward, creating a localized quantum implosion. The last thing they heard before the emergency bulkheads slammed shut was a scream that seemed to echo across multiple dimensions at once. Then, for a moment, time itself seemed to hold its breath. 3 days after the quantum incident, Centauri Hub still bore the scars of what had happened. Sections of corridor where time had flowed differently showed centuries of wear next to pristine panels. Quantum-touched areas glowed with strange colors that defied normal physics. Yet the station had survived, and its inhabitants were beginning to adjust to their new reality. Captain Chen stood at the observation window of the main council chamber, watching repair drones work on the station's outer hull. Behind her, First Speaker Varix and the Emergency Council were reviewing the final damage reports. "The quantum filament network is stable," Varix announced, her sensor stalks moving in complex patterns as she processed the data. The feedback cascade successfully contained the worst of the reality distortions to the junction chamber. "We lost that entire section. But," she paused, all 6 sensor stalks focusing on Chen. "Your quick thinking saved millions of lives across the sector." Chen turned from the window, her expression thoughtful. "It wasn't just my thinking. If the Alliance hadn't spent centuries studying the quantum filaments, we wouldn't have known how to create that counter-resonance. Sometimes the most powerful solutions come from combining different perspectives." Security Director Maz, his armor still bearing scorch marks from quantum exposure, shifted uncomfortably. "What we still don't understand is who they were. Human? Alliance? Both. Does it matter?" Dr. Zhang asked from where she was analyzing data with Rivera. "They represented something we're all going to have to face eventually. The consequences of rapid technological advancement without proper safeguards." Trade Minister Xalex's gelatinous form rippled with concern. "Speaking of technological advancement, we still haven't addressed the fact that humanity has developed capabilities far beyond what should have been possible in such a short time." Chen smiled slightly. "Maybe that's because you're measuring progress by your own standards. Humanity didn't follow the normal development path because we couldn't. We didn't have access to established trade routes or technological exchanges. We had to innovate or die." "And that's exactly what concerns us," another council member spoke up. "Your species developed in isolation, created technologies we barely understand, and now you're here at our doorstep." "With respect," Rivera interjected, looking up from his analysis, "we just proved that isolation isn't the answer. If we hadn't been here, if we hadn't been able to combine our practical experience with your theoretical knowledge, the station would have been destroyed, and the quantum cascade would have spread unchecked through the filament network." Varix finished. She turned to address the council. "Perhaps it's time we reconsidered our approach to emerging civilizations. The old model of controlled technological exchange clearly needs updating." "What are you suggesting?" Maz asked, his combat sensors extending slightly. "A new kind of partnership," Chen answered before Varix could speak. "One based on mutual respect and the understanding that different paths to advancement all have value. Humanity's isolation forced us to think creatively, to solve problems in unconventional ways. But we also made mistakes, developed technologies without fully understanding their implications. Like the quantum manipulation device that was stolen," Zhang added. "Exactly," Chen nodded. "Meanwhile, the Alliance has centuries of accumulated knowledge, theoretical frameworks that could help prevent such mistakes. But you've become so focused on controlling and containing advancement that you've stopped pushing boundaries." Varix moved to the center of the chamber, her sensor stalks swaying thoughtfully. The incident in the junction chamber proved that neither approach alone is sufficient. The power unleashed there was terrible, yes, but it was also amazing. A true synthesis of human innovation and alliance understanding. One that nearly destroyed the station, Maz pointed out, because it was driven by someone who wanted to force evolution, to break the rules entirely, Chen replied. But what if we work together to understand those rules better? To find ways to advance that don't risk tearing reality apart? A contemplative silence fell over the chamber. Outside, the repair drones continued their work, methodically fixing the quantum-scarred hull. In some places, the damaged sections seemed to shift between different states of repair, a permanent reminder of how close they'd come to disaster. There will be opposition, Salax warned. Many will see this incident as proof that humanity is too dangerous to work with. And some humans will argue that the alliance is too conservative, too bound by tradition, to keep up with our pace of advancement, Rivera acknowledged. But we've seen what happens when we don't work together. Chen walked to the center of the chamber, standing beside Verix. The person who stole our technology and combined it with your research was right about one thing. Evolution is inevitable, but it doesn't have to be violent or destructive. We can choose to evolve together, to learn from each other. A rather optimistic view, Captain, Maz rumbled, given recent events. Optimism is another human trait, Chen smiled, along with stubborn determination and a tendency to turn disasters into opportunities. Verix's sensor stalks moved in what Chen had learned was a gesture of amusement. Perhaps that's exactly what this sector needs right now. She turned to the council. I move that we establish a joint human alliance research initiative focused on understanding and safely developing quantum manipulation technology. Seconded, Zhang called out immediately, drawing surprised looks from several council members. As the council began to debate the proposal, Chen returned to the observation window. The repair drones had reached a section of hull where the quantum exposure had created something new, a material that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, both stronger and more flexible than the original structure. A perfect metaphor, Verix said quietly, joining her at the window. Something unexpected and potentially dangerous, transformed into something beneficial through cooperation and understanding. Chen nodded, watching the stars beyond the station. Somewhere out there, other civilizations were following their own paths to advancement. Some would succeed, others would fail, but perhaps they could help ensure that fewer had to face these challenges alone. The universe is too big for any species to have all the answers, she said, but maybe together we can ask better questions. As if in response, a quantum-touched section of the station pulsed with impossible colors, a reminder that there would always be new mysteries to solve, new boundaries to push, and new ways to evolve. Hopefully, from now on, as allies rather than strangers.